The following is a transcript of a conversation between Matías De Stefano, referred to as me, and his higher self, referred to as I am. 24th January 2021, Economy. Me. If there is something controversial in the world, and especially in the world of spirituality, it is economics. It is something we always have a hard time acknowledging, accepting, or even understanding. The truth is that the world has used the economy as a form of control, and this has been etched in our subconscious. But in a way, everything arises from the economy, and without it there would be nothing, right? I am. That's right. Economy comes from the Greek term oikos, house, and the verb nemein, to distribute. The concept oikonomia refers to the management of a house, and by administration I mean the distribution of tasks and resources. When the first humans organized themselves into small groups, herds of hominin sapiens, they saw that the best way to survive was if each of them had a specific task, tasked with a specific function. This ensured subsistence, since everyone had a responsibility to fulfill, which generated security and resources. When the nomadic humans dedicated themselves to hunting and gathering, those fruits, flesh, and bones were distributed among the members of the clan in order to distribute the weight on the trip. Each carried what he could eat, and they carried some more by their strength. Each one earned his food by being part of the team, because those who did not contribute delayed the herd. When Homo sapiens discovered agriculture, they became sedentary, and they understood that the best way to survive was to accumulate goods to get through the winter or drought. During a part of the year, they planted, gathered, hunted, produced, and one of them was in charge of managing what happened to the winter reserve, drought, and what percentages were divided among the individuals. Me. I think it's fair. I am. This ensured survival, although not always. At certain times of the year, no matter how hard you worked to get the resources, they began to be scarce, and it was impossible to spend the winter. Then they had no choice but to ask for help from other clans, other families. If one family had a shortage of seeds and the other of meat, they exchanged the weight of meat for the weight of seeds, creating barter. Me. The system of exchange for values. It's quite subjective, because who defines the value of things? I am. That's why weight was the way to evaluate. Valor is an Indo-European val term meaning strength. The strength that an individual possessed to work, fight, argue was what ensured life. Therefore, the things of life are evaluated according to what gives strength to the body. Because of this, the clearest way to give value to something is by its strength in weight. A kilo of seeds is the same as a kilo of meat. Me. Although it is not so, because getting the meat and seeds requires different production times and very different skills to get them. I am. That was the thought that some had in barter, and therefore it failed. And this was due to something very key. What differentiates the work of a doctor from a farmer, an architect, and that of a master, that of a craftsman and an artist, that of a cook and a transporter? Me. I don't know. I am. It is the force of being, the value that oneself or the group gives to this function in relation to the need of the environment. In an environment where there is a lack of transporters, transport will be more expensive. In a place where there are too many artisans, the works will be much cheaper. The quantity of a product or service is what regulates the value. But at the same time, there is another factor, quality. Well, there may be a lot of the same, but being all of low quality, and therefore the same object of better quality, with better dedication, will have more value. For example, in relation to the quantity, lettuce and tomato are cheaper than pineapple or avocado because they grow much faster than the latter that need at least 2.5 years to give their first fruit. And in relation to quality, a lettuce bitten by insects and weak, soft, is not the same as a rough, strong, and crunchy one with its healthy leaves. The quantity-value ratio begins to occur when there is an abundance of options. The value ratio of quality occurs when there is abundance and stability, security in survival. the same quality value attributed to a food begins to be given to tools, jobs, services, and even ideas. At the time when clans formed kingdoms and gave rise to civilizations, value ceased to be by the weight of the product and became by the conceptual value of knowledge and skills. And this brought a problem. To so many services and products, everyone had something to contribute, but not everyone had the same values to exchange. So a smart decision was made to create a currency of exchange, me. Metals, I am, so that there would be no problems with the exchange of values. The kingdoms decided to create a form of exchange that was easy to manage and distribute, account for and weigh, and that its weight could equal the weight of any object. In this way, if someone was paid for a service, he did not have to exchange this service again to be able to eat, because it would be impossible or enslaving for some. In this way, minerals were sought that could be accounted for and controlled in their quantity and quality, such as bronze, silver, and gold. However, many cultures opted for another way, exchanging seeds. Seeds were an excellent form of exchange at a time when 99% of the world's population was farmers. The exchange of seeds was a money that was never scarce, because it always reproduced, since from one seed many plants could grow and make more money. Me. Let it be reproduced in your hands, something that is usually said in the moments of exchange. It's a cool system. I am, but useless for a civilization like today. Today, a small percentage of humanity lives from what it sows, since most of them, work is related to mostly intangible issues or production of services. Exchanging seeds today would be meaningless. It is a utopia. Me. Why? I am. Because to make such a system work, first every human settler should own at least one orchard of about 200 square meters, with land for some animal, such as poultry, at least. So exchange eggs and fertile seeds. Let them reproduce. But it would require that every human has to reap their own money. Nobody could travel, nobody could buy a house, nobody could go out to eat at a restaurant, nobody could take a course. For everything to bear fruit, all jobs should be related to the field. You understand? What could one who engages in anything other than agriculture do? Nothing. Me. I understand. I am. Therefore, talking about barter or exchange of seeds in the 21st century is an outdated concept. It's time to look at Aquarius. Me. And there the economy will be different. I am. Well, it will no longer be a house. The house will be the world, and the administration will be in networks. As we said before, the metal option was chosen. The mineral was given a value for its weight, but also based on its rarity or quantity and quality, since a small diamond would be worth the same as a huge handful of gold, and a handful of gold would equal a large amount of silver. This was generating different types of values. The mines were responsible for ensuring the value of the metals in circulation. That is, they ran between people, hence the English currency from the Latin currens, which equals to run. In Rome, in the mines of the capital, the mineral was extracted at the foot of the temple of Juno Counselor, the announcer who warns of approaching enemies. In Latin, annunciadora is said moneta, from the verb monere, to warn. And because from there the values of pesos were produced, they were stamped with the image of Juno Moneta, with which the concept of coins emerged, which in English generated money. In Iberia, another mineral circulated that was worth its weight in 10 units, something that in Latin was called deni, 10 times, and that named the currency as denarius, which originated in Iberia the concept of money in Spanish. From here, the manager of the house saved in coins, in metals, and used them to exchange it for objects or services. In colonialism, invading countries from the Americas found mountains with tons of silver and gold in the mines of the Andes and Rockies. Thus it was revalued in weight per ore, which gave rise to the American currencies known as pesos, and the payment of pesos was called wages because people were paid in sacks of salt from the mines? Me. Anyway, it is an unfair system because there are some who have more than they need. I am. The system is unfair because the people who use it are not fair. Let's go back to the concept of power. The lack of personal power and inner coherence causes humans to seek to gain power on the outside through outer inheritance. That is, they consider that the achievement of their subsistence is due to maintaining the amount of power necessary to control others. In a world where strength went from being of the body to being evaluated in minerals and its exchange, strength, weight, began to be had by the rich, not the strong, and the weak and poor became subjects of the former. Me. What would the solution be? Eliminate poverty? Eliminate wealth? I am. Neither. The solution is to be consistent and ask yourself the questions. Do I really need what I have? Do I control others with what I have or don't have? Why do I need what I want? Questions like these help us realize whether we are consistent or not. See, the word poor comes from the Latin pauper and means infertile. Me. Infertile, like a woman or man who cannot have a child, like a land that cannot bear fruit. I am. That's right. It is conjugated of pauco, little, and parere, to give birth, to beget. On the contrary, we find those who own a lot, the powerful, the rich, which comes from the Gothic rake, that is, who rules, who has the right, the strength. In the Mediterranean, due to that familiarity of the oligarchs with divinity by hierarchical inheritance, they were known as the divas, that is, those who have everything, as a god. This perception of wealthy oligarchs comes from ancient views in which the powerful were a group that inherited power by ties of blood and divinity, and the poor were those who did not know how to produce on their own, who depended on others to live. For centuries, the rich, in order to maintain power, took more and more rights away from individuals so that they would constantly depend on hierarchy. However, with the Industrial and French revolutions, this began to take a historic turn, as many of those who previously could not produce now had the opportunity to grow. In the last century, the development of the middle class freed many to see that it was possible to find an equity by getting out of poverty, without entering wealth or vice versa. Me. But it's still a control system. I am. It's easy to complain about ideologies from a boat on the Nile looking at the landscape. Me. Good point. I am. When you look at the whole history of mankind, there was no other time in history of greater richness, opportunity, and freedom than there is now. It is important that they can assess what has been achieved. Your minds are like that pessimist who begins to improve after a long and tedious illness, and his reaction is, "Yes, but I have not been cured." To be cured, you must first heal. It is not magic, and the only way to heal is to acknowledge the past, free ourselves from it, and recognize the achievements of the present. What you see today as conflict, 100 years ago, was the greatest dream. Me. I understand. It's what we always say. We complain and again about what happens to us without evaluating how far we have come. After thousands of years of barter, currency was invented, and after thousands of years of coins, new electronic forms are only being invented through the internet. Does this mean that money will disappear? Many people think that the evil of the human is money. I am. No, it's not the money. I propose to you, imagine a world without money, where 8 billion inhabitants live who want to be free in the world. Me. It gets complicated. I am. Absolutely. Because the only solution to a world without money is a dictatorship. Why? You may wonder, because without something external that evaluates the weight of external things according to the needs of individuals, the value of them must be imposed by an ideology. This would make everyone have the same, and generates protectionism of territorial resources. There, new forms of exchange begin to be invented. The human is nomadic, he is intelligent, He seeks solutions to conflicts, and therefore he will always be exchanging things. Money is one of many. The money with which you pay for food for your family and your studies is the same money with which weapons are paid for, the war and drugs are paid to the mafia. Was money the problem? Or is it the distorted deviation of human consciousness? Me. Clearly human consciousness. I am. Don't waste energy fighting a battle against a piece of metal or paper when the real transformation is within you. Political ideologies manipulate individuals into believing that there are oligarchic groups that control their resources through the poison of money just to gain power from their consciousness. Me. This is what you see in many countries, right? The belief that by protecting one's own and distributing resources equally, wealth is distributed. I am. Exactly. Wealth cannot be distributed. It can only be generated. No one is rich by accumulation, but by generation. Obtaining a resource without being the participant of the generation empties the individual of power, giving power to the one who gives it. Me. This reminds me of teach him to fish, don't give him fish. I am. When you give the fish, you take power, value from the individual. When you teach him to fish, you give power and value to his being. Wealth, as we said, means power, to rule. It does not mean to have. The rich own nothing. They simply manage their power. Me. But there is a historic struggle between rich and poor. There is still oligarchy. I am. It only exists because of ignorance. Me. In what sense? I am. Religion has built a spiritual idea around poverty, describing it as the path to salvation. Of the poor shall be the kingdom of heaven. This idea was used in the medieval age to control and conform the servicing and agricultural classes. Work hard, even if you don't win in life, you will win in heaven. The idea was adopted by politics, as it was useful for controlling large imperial territories with large populations. Thus, he went on to the ideologies that were embodied in education, channeling the ideas of the oppressed, the struggle for rights, equality, smeared in class concepts, in most cases with a clear message: choose the right representative and he will give you everything you ask for. Me. Manipulation. I am. That's how everyone came to believe that they live in democracy when you never have. On the basis of repetition, you have been made to believe that wealth is the enemy, that poverty is a condition, that the only way out of there is to eliminate one of the others and depend on states capable of acting as mothers and fathers, some more liberal than others, and yet the idea is the same. Me. What about companies? I am. Company comes from undertaking, from doing something with the aim of getting something in return. Every human is an entrepreneur by nature, but in the loss of personal power, growing up in a culture based on fear and manipulation of its individuals, it has given all its value to entrepreneurs without fear. In the Industrial Revolution, the expansion of factories caused merchants to obtain much more resources than the wealthy oligarchs of the 17th and 18th centuries. Thus arises the marketocracy, that is, the power of purchase, from the Latin merx, which equals commodity. Me. What a paradox that marx in Latin means market. I am. The market becomes part of the oligarchy again, when it had come to put it to an end. Me. Why does this happen again and again? I am. So again and again we repeat. The problem is not in objects or systems. It is in the human and his inability to be coherent and harmonious. In the quest for survival, power is secured in different forms of hierarchies. This is something that happens in any family, and from there to the world. You cannot judge the world as being world, since it is made up of families, and it is these that shape the world. The small consciousnesses are the ones that create the superconsciousness, and if they do not take power of themselves, they will always hand the decision over to the superconsciousness. Me. How do you solve all this? I am. in the house. That's where the economy arises, especially in the place where this all began, in the kitchen. The ancients managed food to survive, hence the true economy, and therefore it is linked to the fear of dying of hunger, of losing control of life. The economy is not solved with philosophies of an economic nature, or strategies of ministers or economists. The economy is solved with what I nourish my heart. Me. The heart. I am. The economic system is related in biological nature to the circulatory system. The heart is like the bank, but instead of accumulating and saving, it manages by circulating it to each organ. Veins move the resources you call blood, and the organs absorb from them just enough and necessary for their functioning. There are days that need more and others that need less. They never accumulate, but they are not the same either. The bodies know what they need, and they collaborate with each other by circulating resources. This is possible because each cell, individual, is aware of itself, of the place it occupies, and does not depend on the central government, called the brain, to manage its own home. The questions to ask ourselves is whether we are able to manage our own emotional and physical resources. As humans, are you able to exchange? What resources do you have? Are you fertile? Wherein? Do you share your harvest? Do you depend on anything external? About what? Do you have the power and control of your lives, or to whom do you owe it and give it? Me. I think they are the most difficult questions, answering how we live our emotional and physical economy. I am. Your giving and receiving begins in the heart, in the way you relate. If you do not know how to give and receive emotionally, you will have chaos in your economic life, and by chaos I mean poverty or wealth, for both are unnecessary extremes in a balanced being. Me. The key to restructuring a new economy is to go back to the heart. What to say to those who say that invisible things cannot be charged, that is, spiritual or consciousness work cannot be charged for? I am. There is a big difference between service and work. The service has a great value that is incalculable, and therefore it is absurd to charge for it, because if said service really has the value that is given to it, everything you need will come to you, so that you can do it by law of correspondence. If service does not come from the heart, there will be poverty. On the other hand, one can use his gift as a form of work on the land without being a service. All paid work on earth is due to the gift of the one who exercises it, and spirituality is not exempt from this law. You have a body with basic needs in the third dimension, and the economy was born to manage that body. Me. So, I can work on spirituality, like any gift, and value it as I see fit. But when I am willing to do a service, to place a value on it or to charge for it is absurd, because it means that I do not trust such service. This year I have put myself at service, and I have received more than ever thanks to it. And yet I kept working because I consider that I deserve to live in this life as I value my own being. I am, as always. You know what it is to give and receive in balance when you know how to do it from your heart. It will not matter later what you use, if services, minerals, salts, or seeds. If your heart is not coherent, you will try to save or fight for anything you have valued. Me. And the value is conceptual. I am. It's an idea. It's imaginary. There is only one real value in life, eating and sleeping. There is only one transcendental value in life, reproducing or producing. There is only one existential value in the universe, the oneness that is counted in love. Me. Aquarius is coming, and the economy will be different. I am. The forms will be, not so the valor, if you recover your lost power. Value yourself. Return to your heart's home, and you will understand the true economy. Tell me, What is your value?
My